I think that we can start, right? Shall we start? So, good morning and welcome everyone. Really many sincere thanks for joining today, the webinar of today, which is organized by the expert group of Water Europe on nature-based solutions and green infrastructures. This webinar, I'm proud, to say that comes a very timely moment for the Water Europe community and for the water community at large in Europe and beyond Europe. As you know, Water Europe works in order to support, to build a water smart society and economy, which is an integrated vision where water is managed in a sustainable way, efficiently, and as a driver of resilience of our society, resilience of our territories, resilience of the overall system, which we know as human society. And of course, we look at the same time at improving, fostering circularity, where water represents, a key factor, um, which also represents another key factor for the competitiveness of our system in Europe and for the member states and at large for the well-being. So in this context, our expert group on green infrastructure and other based solution plays a really a central role in this ambition because it's an expert group that really works, to bring together leading practitioners, researchers, policymakers, because we also have to look at not only technology but also at innovation in policy development, and of course, brings together innovators to really to co-create the necessary knowledge, and this, to accelerate as much as possible the uptake of solutions that can support this transition uh, towards a more smart society and economy. Now, I'm pleased, to remind that the water resilience strategy published by the European Commission is now underway. And then we need to look at the implementation of the water resilience strategy, which is an absolute, appointment of the European Union in order to, not only to remain competitive in the long run, but really, to ensure that our water resources will be sustainable, secure, and resilient. This, really to strengthen Europe's resilience at large. We need, to implement the water resilience strategy to restore the ecosystems, to reduce the pressures on water bodies, and support sustainable agricultural practices, which I like to remind that agriculture uses, around 65% of water consumption in Europe. Discussion today, uh, we hope that will help, to understand how another-based solution can move from concept, to the real deployment, the real scaling up, especially in agriculture sector, which is one of the priority areas identified by the strategy. And to do this, we are really lucky today. We're really fortunate because we have two excellent speakers with us, and I'd like, to introduce them. Stefano Laurich from the University of Bologna, which presentation will be on another-based solution for agricultural water management, and the focus will be on nutrient reduction, water retention, and the resilient agricultural landscape. And Fiona Gosvers from the Flemish Land Agency, whose presentation will be on another-based solution bridging the gap between theory and practice. The focus will be on real-world examples, deployment, pathways, enabling conditions and barriers. There will be discussion. There will be an open discussion with the audience. And let's say that we would like to start to understand who is our audience. So if you allow me, I would like to open a very quick Mentimeter. I hope that this could be visible on the screens of everybody. So please, do not hesitate to point your camera at the QR code or just enter the code. Let's wait, a few seconds for the audience to enter into the Mentimeter. Thank you. I think that we can start with the first slide to get more familiar with our audience. So the first question is about which sector best describes your current work area? It seems that research and development and academia represent the majority in our audience. I'm quite concerned when I see that this kind of survey have a majority from others. So it means that we didn't organize, a good Mentimeter. That is not the case in our case, in our time. And well, we see that I say the majority um, are from academia, research and development. Then we have following sustainability professionals, regional urban planners, which is very much interesting. Also policy making, water technology managers and innovators. So that we can go to the next slide. Then, the question is pretty easy. How much are you familiar with the NbS concept? Happy to see that we have majority which is familiar with the concept of NbS, that along with somewhat, it means that, well, we have a good audience for discussing about development and scaling up of potential solutions, NbS solutions. Might go to the next, which is also the last one. And well, just write a word that come up in your mind about application-based solutions in peri-urban areas. Green, great. Difficulty, sustainability, adaptation, what balance, benefits, such decentralization, circularity. Sounds good. Seems that the shape of this slide, brings us, to adaptation, green, water management, resilience, space. Seems that adaptation is becoming the more important one. So I think that there is a clear reference, to the climate change in terms of adaptation and new conditions for water management. It's a good fight, huh? Between adaptation and water management. So I think that the picture is clear enough. I think that also our speakers. Thank you so much. I think that we are done with this. So resilience seems and adaptation, space, green, biodiversity, water management seems to me the key concept of our audience while thinking about application of based solutions. So I close the presentation and I stop sharing. And now, I'm happy, to give the floor to the first presenter, Stevo. Please take the floor and start your presentation. Once again, thank you so much for your contribution today.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Andrea, for the introduction. You should be seeing my screen now. So yes, my name is Stevo Lavernic. I'm associated professor in the Department of Agriculture and Food Sciences of the University of Bologna in Italy, and working in the sector of agriculture, hydraulics, and watershed protection. And for a long time now, I've been working on nature-based solutions. So, welcome to this webinar. This will be the first webinar in a series of webinars that our group is organizing. So the main objective of this one is to give you introduction on nature-based solutions and their application in in agriculture areas. When we talk about agriculture sector, agriculture production, we have different problems that are related to water. We have problems related to water demand, water scarcity, and water quality. We know also, Andrea said before, the agriculture is the biggest water consumer in the world. When we talk about the world level, we have around 70% of total withdrawals that go to agriculture, so it's very important. However, this big demand for water by agriculture sector is somehow affected negatively by water scarcity. We have different types of water scarcity in different areas of the world, and many important agricultural areas are already under the risk of water scarcity, which affects negatively, of course, agricultural production. On the other hand, even if water is not scarce, it's not always of the best quality because we have different anthropical activities, including agriculture, that can cause pollution of water and thus having negative impact on agricultural production. Climate change is an important aspect when we talk about water management in agriculture, mainly because we have a change in rainfall patterns. So basically, we don't, in many areas of the world, we have this change, meaning that we have long periods without rain and then short periods with intense and concentrated rain events that can generate high surface runoff, cause damage and erosion, but also washing out sediments, fertilizer, or different compounds used in agriculture that can pollute surface water bodies. So what can we do to solve these problems? We need different flexible water management approaches that can, for example, enhance water retention. We need to limit sediments and pollutant transport to water bodies and also make our ecosystem stronger to reduce their vulnerability to climate extremes. For decades now, we have used traditional approaches that are often engineering structures that can negatively affect ecosystems and biodiversity. But also under these climate change scenarios, the role of these traditional infrastructures might not be sufficient. So we need alternatives. We need sustainable and green alternatives to solve these problems. One of these alternatives are nature-based solutions. Nature-based solutions, many of you are familiar with the concept, so you will know that these are human-made infrastructures that mimic processes present in nature to provide benefits for human well-being and biodiversity. So nature-based solutions, they can integrate different benefits, environmental, social, economic, and so on. And they can enhance water management in agriculture areas, also restoring ecosystems that are under severe pressures today. How can nature-based solutions really help with these problems, with the problems of water management and agriculture? Nature-based solutions can be used to integrate the role of traditional hydraulic infrastructures, for example, dams, reservoirs, and so on, that are, especially before they are a bit rigid or they're not flexible. And green infrastructures, so nature-based solutions can be used to integrate gray solutions to store excess water that is produced during intensive rain events. On the other hand, nature-based solutions can, after storing this excess water, nature-based solutions act like sponges, so they absorb water when there is a lot of water, and then they release it slowly into the environment. They release it both towards groundwater, so infiltration, and also towards surface water bodies. So they act like a stabilizing factor for restoring natural water flow and reducing erosion. Nature-based solutions can also improve water quality, so they can filter out sediments, nutrients, and other water pollutants through different microbial processes, through plant absorption, and they can have really important effect on this aspect. Some of the nature-based solutions that can help with water quality improvement are, for example, constructed wetlands or riparian buffers that you will hear more from the next speaker. Nature-based solutions, they can also protect biodiversity, so they provide habitats for different flora and fauna species within agriculture landscape, but they can also create ecological corridors for migratory species. And the role of nature-based solutions is especially important when we talk about biodiversity loss and the species under the risk of extinction, because they can provide habitat and shelter for these species and connect them with connect different habitats where these species are present. Finally, nature-based solutions that can also provide different human-related ecosystem services, so they can improve quality of life and social well-being. For example, in the Mentimeter, many of you said green. So we associate nature-based solutions with something green, and green is something that we like to see as human beings. So nature-based solutions can contribute to physical and mental health. If applied in urban areas, for example, they can improve microclimate, they can reduce air pollution and noise. In other areas, they can contribute to both food and water security that are often important for traditional communities, but nature-based solutions are considered also very important for local cultural identity. They foster social cohesion, culture of different communities that strengthen the people's sense of place and well-being, which is really important. Many different types of nature-based solutions can be used in agriculture areas. So, for example, we have constructed wetlands that are, let's say, artificial pendant of natural wet zones, natural wetlands. Constructed wetlands, they can capture and treat agricultural runoff, they can store excess water, and they can support biodiversity. Then we have buffer strips, for example, which are green vegetated areas along agricultural fields or surface canals that reduce nutrient and then pesticides or fertilizers input to surface water bodies. We have agroforestry systems, which is basically integration of trees into agricultural areas to increase biodiversity. And then we have also, before mentioned, green corridors that can connect habitats that are fragmented by anthropic infrastructures. However, when we talk about application of nature-based solutions in agricultural areas on a larger scale, we have to consider a few aspects. So nature-based solutions and their application, they require tailored planning that is based on different conditions. They operate on longer time frames, which means that they don't their benefits are not immediately visible. So we need to allow some time for them to develop and to adapt to the context where they are applied to. So this requires also co-design with local stakeholders. Nature-based solutions, they can require high surface areas, which may come in conflict with intensive land use, but they can offer different benefits. And finally, they need application of nature-based solutions needs improved regulatory framework and technical support tools, for example, different guidelines for their application. When we talk about stakeholder involvement in nature-based solutions planning and implementation, it's really important, as said before. So we need to integrate and make different types of stakeholders talk. So, for example, we have farmers that are maybe the most important stakeholder group when we talk about nature-based solutions in agriculture areas, since the farmers are those that manage land, and they are those that will be the key implementers of these solutions. They should be supported, of course, with local authorities and water agencies when we talk about guidelines or funding, but they also need to be supported by research institutions and citizens that provide better support and legitimacy of these solutions. On the other hand, we need to make these different stakeholders talk and cooperate, but there is uneven benefit distribution across different actors. So, for example, farmers are those that will suffer, if you allow me, the most when applying nature-based solutions, because it means taking away land for agricultural production. So it's very important to have them on board and to have them see what kind of benefits there are, but also to provide them with the instruments to apply nature-based solutions. Another barrier is low awareness. So many stakeholders don't really know what kind of benefits nature-based solution can have. And then we have a weak coordination framework that connects different stakeholders. Policy aspects are really important because the policy aspects are those that fuel application on nature-based solutions on a larger scale. So nature-based solutions are at the core of United Nations agenda, particularly when we talk about sustainable development goals. So different sustainable development goals are clearly connected with nature-based solutions. And when we talk about European level, we have European Green Deal, which considers nature-based solutions and as one of the tools to achieve biodiversity protection, sustainable agricultural production, and resilience to climate change. So in conclusion, we can say that nature-based solutions can offer concrete and multifunctional responses to different challenges that modern world and modern agriculture production have, especially when we consider climate change and the impact of it on a larger scale. And nature-based solutions can certainly can certainly support long-term sustainability of the land and agricultural production. However, in order to unlock their full potential, it's necessary to implement different aspects. And nature-based solutions, they, as we said before, they require land for their application. So we need appropriate economic and regulatory instruments that will support farmers or other stakeholders that will implement them. We need to implement participatory planning, so different types of stakeholders need to be included in the application of nature-based solutions. And then finally, we have to achieve cultural shifts towards resilient agricultural models, which also means cultural shift considering benefits that nature-based solutions can have, and valuing both of their requirements and benefits to have a bigger picture. So thank you very much for your attention. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer. Thank you.
Many thanks, Theo. Thanks a lot for the insights. I mean, on NbS. We're going to have, a few questions at the end, of the second speaker. But in the meanwhile, we are really happy, to receive questions, on the chat. So the audience is welcoming to write question on the chat, and we'll be happy, to share with the speakers. Now, let's say that from agriculture, or rather, from the examples brought from Steve, we want to bridging the gap between the theory and the practice. And here I welcome Finn Govers from the Flemish Land Agency to present, the nature-based solutions and how we can build this bridge between what we do in theory and how we will see NbS in practice. So the floor is yours. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you, Andrea. Hello, everyone. I am Fien. I'm talking to you from Ghent in Flanders, and I'm going to talk in 15 minutes about some of our projects. So I'm going to present landscape scale nature-based solutions for water quality and quality management. And I'm from the Flemish Land Agency, but we are joining the webinar also for the University of Ghent. Professor Diederik Rousseau is also joining for more technical questions, maybe later. So indeed, I'm gonna focus on the main question, maybe in the question we all have. We like the theory, but what if we start with the practice? And sorry, but I'm gonna start with the theory once more, not to tell all about nature-based solutions, as you obviously know a lot about it already, but I just wanna zoom in because first of all, we need to understand nature-based solutions, the what, well, it's just a sustainable solution. It's nothing more, but it's also nothing less. But then more importantly is the how. So how do the solutions function? They function like natural features or processes. And this is really important to understand. But then for me, the main important aspect of the definition is actually explaining the goal, because it's telling us a bit to go out of this box, to be innovative, and it's telling us to work with locally adapted. So the word locally is there, and that's already showing us that it's not a generic solution. It's a locally adapted regional solution. But also resource efficient, which is logical that it's there, but it means that we have to be also pragmatic, practical, and have to think about our finances. But then maybe the most important word, systemic interventions. And we like the word systemic, we use it a lot, but we don't talk enough about what it really means, because it means that we have really complex solutions, and these solutions are embedded in a complex process. So when we think about system transitions as an engineer, we will think about probably landscape transitions. We start with some vegetation, some water courses, and then we'll change the water courses, maybe put some remeandering, we'll maybe change the vegetation, and then we'll say this is a resilient landscape 2.0, we're finished. But we are living in a human-made world for a big part. So it means that we are not only in a transition of the landscape, we're also in a transition of a society. And this society is linked to an economical transition. So although we all often are engineers, we need to connect to this socio-economical aspect of our landscapes, of our regions, to really get what we call scaling deep, get to the center of the solution. So enough theory, I want to talk about how does it work. First of all, I want to explain something about the projects that our organization, the Flemish Land Agency, uses. This is something we've been doing for the last 30 years. What's really important to mention is that we work with region-specific projects. So we have a certain perimeter, and for this area, an expert team will work for 10, sometimes even 20 years to really recreate the land. This recreating means that we can organize agricultural and natural areas in a better way to retain water. It can also mean that we will build on green-blue networks in these peripheral areas, so not in the city centers. We are not there. We are in the rural areas. And also it means that we are raising environmental quality, among other things. We are also working on archaeology, for example, but these are some of the core aspects. And what we also do is we join with other Flemish organizations to create platforms to support local coalitions. So a first example is the open space platform. So it's working together of a couple of Flemish governments combining finances to support local coalitions, several local coalitions, to really implement nature-based solutions, and in this case for a very broad landscape optimization in general. But there's also another more recent example. We call it the Waterlandschap program. You can find the link there. And in this program, we are really doing the same thing, but for climate resilience and for water system restoration. And what is interesting is that we don't only offer the finances, but we also offer the knowledge, because we create a platform where the local coalitions come together and exchange knowledge. And we also create some experts, for example, research institutions that can support when there are more technical questions, or if there's some modeling needed for a certain question from a certain local coalition, then we can support the coalition to get in touch with an expert to give them the answer to their question. So it's, it's combining, bridging all kind of scales and knowledge to really get the correct information in the correct space. You can see some more of our instruments. I'm not going to talk about it all in detail, but one instrument that's also interesting to mention is the land bank. Because, for example, when you create an infiltration basin, you might need to use some farmland. Can be something else as well. But then the land user, the farmer, loses land, and often it's only compensated with finance. But with this land bank, we will try to provide the farmer a suitable parcel and swap land, so the farmer is also compensated with land in land use. So it's a system to redistribute the land use, and support in a better way the local actors that are influenced by the projects. So then I want to talk about what we're doing now. So of course, as everyone in Europe and in the world is facing climate change, we have a next challenge, because it's not enough anymore to be systemic now. We want to be systemic in 50 years or maybe in 10 years. Let's start there. So we want to also be ready for these climate risks. And to do so, we wrote the Klimaatleidraad, which is a document, a guideline for project managers who are acting in these regional projects, to support them in how to also tackle climate risks and also build climate resilience while building this landscape value. And for this, we are with the European project of Embracer, really trying to translate even this more high-scale guideline to a really practical guideline based on our experiences in a couple of ongoing projects. And what I created here is a 12-step towards climate resilience based on well-fitted nature-based solutions. It's not yet finished, and I don't have time to explain it completely, but I want to share with you the key elements that are there. Because we always say regional stakeholders are key, but it is true. So I would say start with assessing your regional stakeholders in different categories don't only consider farmers or governments, even stakeholders that communicate could be important, or researchers. But more importantly, even also assess the impact, the potential impact of your stakeholders. Who can change what? Who can decide what? It's important to understand this before you start. Then secondly, you have to assess your regional climate risks. For us in Flanders, we have a digital platform showing the maps of complete Flanders with the climate risks. But even if there is a platform, often your stakeholders will not be aware of the risks. So we organized, for example, in some projects, workshops where we share the maps and we discuss how do they see this? Is this a big risk? On what term is it a risk? What is the priority? So it's not only sharing the knowledge or creating the knowledge, it's also about discussing it with your stakeholders. And then the third one might be something you didn't expect. But to be honest, especially here in Belgium, we are not all laying awake because of climate change yet. Or I don't know, maybe you are, but some people still are not. And it's normal, you know? We all have our day-to-day things. But if you want to have a support base on a regional scale with your local actors, you have to understand what are the regional problems and desires. It can be something stupid, it can be something big, but if you want to really help them, you have to listen. Because what is for me the key element in this complete process is the selection of well-fitted regional NbSs. We have in theory over 100, maybe 500 different NbSs, depending on the definitions. But when we start with selecting, we have to start with the landscape. You need NbSs that are fitting your landscape. You cannot use NbSs in a valley that are fitted for a slope. So there you are, you can put some of the table. But then you also need NbSs that are addressing in a good way your climate risks. If you have an area that is really prone for drought, then you need NbSs that are really reassuring this retention of water, providing water. So then you have to focus on this selection of NbSs. And then you can say, now we are done, because that's where we get as an engineer. But no, we're not done, because if we want to involve our local stakeholders, we need NbSs that create co-benefits that address the problems and desires of our actors. And when you also add this, one, you don't need to make big decisions because the selection of NbS that you can use is not too big anymore. But two, you can create enthusiastic regional partnerships and you're not on your own anymore. You know, it will accelerate from itself because you get people that have this intrinsic motivation to create these NbSs. And you know it will also help for your resilience, but at the same time, you will also address the important issues for the region. And then the last step, and we'll discuss this probably later, and in Embracer also, everyone asks what are enablers and barriers. But to be honest, for me, this is more about the optimization of your NbS implementation. Because if you have your selection of NbSs, then still these will not be perfect. There will be people in your region that it will maybe affect in a negative way, or they have to work harder, or you need to organize management. So you need to understand what is still in the way for your implementation and what can solve it. And maybe if it's a technical issue, you can solve it with research and you will have even, again, a better implementation. And sometimes it can be something more of a practical idea, like we need machines and they're not here. But also then it's very important information, and it might be your enabling factor to just bring the right machines to your stakeholders to implement your nature-based solution. So sometimes it might be more simple than you think. So that's in general, listen and observe. So for the last 10 minutes, I will just quickly go through some of the examples. I focus on the agricultural rural landscapes in Flanders. We have different landscapes as well, but we're talking now mainly of these more agricultural landscapes. The first example is a project in the Flemish Ardennes. It is for Flanders a hilly area. It is relatively hilly, meaning that we are tackling erosion issues in this area. We're creating at the same time also a valuable nature area, and we're supporting sustainable agriculture. And we're doing that by creating climate resilient landscapes together with the local actors. As you can see, the goals of this project, that's quite wide. You can see the circle. So it's about nature, it's about agriculture, it's about water, it's about adaptation. And to have this combined goals, we did some very concrete things. So one, we visited the field a lot. We have an expert team of biologists, an archaeologist, a soil expert, and so on. And we really go to the field, talk to the farmers, experience the area. But also two, we organized with Embracer a workshop with the local actors, the municipalities, some of the farm representatives, and we discussed the climate risks. Then also we assessed the climate risks, the theoretical climate risks on the Klimaatportaal. You can find the link there to see which municipality, which location has flood risks, which location had drought risks, where is the water demand for agriculture the highest, and so on. We also were lucky to work together with the Department of Environment for sediment modeling to assess in a better way where the erosion problems are the highest and to make priorities in where the locations are that we should act with NbSs or other. We organized info markets together with the province of East Flanders to really talk to the local farmers and really listen to their concerns and to explain about the nature-based solutions. We do this for the municipalities separately to not have two big groups. And we also use the system of going around, so not giving a big PowerPoint presentation, but letting them walk around with some posters on the wall and really talking like 1-to-1 or 4-to-1 to really give them space also to discuss what they want to discuss. We also did some monitoring to better understand the impact of the nature-based solutions. And again, here we work together with the local stakeholders. We're building local coalitions in order to get things going. Then in West Flanders, another example is the Machuit Valley. It's a wet area, wet valley. Here we tackled drought issues and fluvial flooding while building climate resilient landscapes with the local community in a high productive agricultural landscape. We did similar things, but I just want to discuss one aspect of it, otherwise it's just too much. And this is that we used the instrument of the land banks. So we had a reserve of land and we organized a call with all the farmers in the area that are using also our lands. And we asked them to describe potential NbSs that they could implement in the future, but also what they're doing now to assess how sustainable their practices are. And then we redistribute the land use based on how sustainable the farmers are working. And this for the next 5 years, maybe a bit more, to really support the farmers that are doing the effort to be sustainable, to increase water quality, to decrease erosion, to have a better environmental impact, and also engage or try to give the incentive to the farmers that are a bit behind, not doing it yet, to start doing it. So it's an example of the instrument and how it could increase NbS implementation. Also here we worked a lot with info moments, info markets with the farmers. We also created, of course, the support for the sustainable practices, and so on. Here you can see another nature-based solution that was already mentioned today, so the constructed wetlands. Also in West Flanders, we have a lot of still overflow of houses and this has a negative impact on our water quality. And because the houses are too widespread, creating a sewage system is just not feasible. So it is one of the good and nature-based solutions to work with constructed wetlands. This is then an example of a big constructed wetland, but also a filter. So in the European project of Aquatuur on the Kranenpoel, it's in West Flanders, there is also water coming from agricultural runoff where there is phosphate in the water. And there were issues with the Kranenpoel, it's a nature reserve, that cannot deal with these concentrations of phosphate. So they installed a natural filter system, a phosphate filter, but in a very natural way. So I can show you here. I'm not the technical expert here, but what I can tell you is that it's a quite complex system. They need to think a lot about the design. And one of the problems is the saturation of the substrate, where the iron sand is very easily saturated with phosphate. And the way to tackle this is to work with compartments in the filter area, so that it's not always the same part of the substrate that is taking up the phosphate, and then it can have a longer lifespan. So here you can also see the partners of the project. It's a colleague of mine who is doing the design together with all these other organizations, with University of Ghent, who is present today, and also Vito is involved. So if you ask me to summarize my lessons learned, I would say just when you're really going to this practice and you're an engineer, just for a second, forget about all what you learned in school and let intuition guide you rather than reason. Because when it comes to really getting to your community and really going to this landscape scale implementation, you need to feel the region. You need to read the region and understand what is really going on there. And secondly, don't act like a stone, act like a river. And well, we said it already, but it's about being flexible. It's about knowing that our solutions today might not be the solutions in 5 years, because we are in a changing system, we're in a natural dynamic system. And not only that, we're also in a socio-economical dynamic system. So rather than thinking that we bring that one perfect solution to them, try to do it while listening and be flexible. And also when you see that some aspect of your design is not optimal and you have time still to adapt, just try to do it. And with these nature-based solutions, you have much more time to be flexible than with the general gray solutions. So I thank you all for listening. You can see all the projects that I mentioned earlier over there. The links are also in the presentation. If you have any questions, you can always contact me, or you can contact the University of Ghent as well. Thank you.
Many thanks, Phil. I fully agree. I mean, when you say, I mean, do not act like a stone, it means, I mean, let's be systemic in the approach and consider, I mean, the interaction between, I mean, who provides the solution and the beneficiaries as well. And so I need to listen to them, which goes beyond, I mean, let's say the strict engineering approach. I mean, that I know I'm an engineer, so I fully appreciate and very much appreciate, I mean, this kind of approach. I mean, particularly in database solutions, which require, I mean, a lot of interaction with the territory and the stakeholders. We have questions. We have a lot of questions, and I guess that some of the questions might be addressed, I mean, after the webinar, because we have just 10 minutes left, I mean, for today. So let's start from Finn, because I mean, it's the last question that I received, and it is I can read it directly. It said, how have land swaps been received by landowners, farmers? Has the land that is used for swaps been owned to start off with by Vlaamse land, or have the lands to be swapped to have gone through some political discussion and deals in order to be able to be used in the swapping program?
Yeah, I can send maybe best the link that explains the instrument completely. But how it works is when we know, for example, we have to, I'll use the example of forestation. So you need to have a couple of hectares forest in an area, and there's some farmland that has to be changed to forest. Then we can set up a voorkooprecht. So it means that when a parcel is put for sale,
Yeah,
that as a government you can have the first I don't know, offer. You can be the first to buy it. um, and then when you can buy it, you can redistribute it, and then in a while you can use this to create the forests. So that's how you get the land. When it comes to the swapping, we really have people that are on the field, know the farmers well, so they also know what is important for them, like what kind of crops they have, what are the areas that are easily accessible, and then they can look for the parcel that would fit the swap the best. So they also can have already an idea of, I think that the farmer will like it, or probably it's not interesting for him. Um, but yeah, more than that, I think it's better that you look at our website, because I'm not a land swapper. So my colleagues who do it every day can explain a lot more. But that's the two principles that are key.
thanks. And now there is also a question for Theo, that how can we identify the areas where NbS would have been the highest impact, especially when nutrients loads and the runoff pressures are greatest?
Yes, that's a that's a very difficult and interesting question. So we would need to consider several factors. So, for example, one of the factors that we would need to take into account is the soil fertility. So we would preferably install nature-based solutions in the areas where soil is not that fertile, in order to not to reduce agricultural production too much. Then we also need to consider how different agriculture areas are managed and what kind of pollutants can come from these agriculture areas. But then also, it's a good way to install different nature-based solutions for on the level on a bigger level. So, for example, irrigation district or watershed scale. So we would need to consider the flow of different surface water bodies. So, for example, the channels and the concentration of different pollutants in that water. So we would really need to do uh, some um, some high scale analysis of agriculture areas in terms of pollution, in terms of water flows, in terms of agricultural production, in order to identify the areas that are best suited for nature-based solutions.
Thank you. And then I think that this question is for Finn. Says is a question about, I mean, the replication of the platform in other countries. So is possible?
So it's about the Klimaatportaal, I think. Eh?
I guess yes.
Yeah, I guess it's possible. I did not build the portal. I think you could best ask then, for example, Flemish Environmental Agency, VMM or VITO, who are involved in it more actively. But in general, it's just modeling. I mean, there's water models, stream models. I think I can check which one behind it. So for flooding, I guess it should be doable. For drought, it's more difficult, maybe because you already need more information about your groundwater and your soil moisture, and you need a good mapping of your soil types. But it comes all down to the data you have collected, and your model will be as good as your data. So um, I think it's possible, but it depends on what data you have in your region, how good or what will be the uncertainty on your results. But to use it as a communication material, in my experience, yeah, it does not really matter if it's 10 centimeters or 20 centimeters flooding. If there's just a blue spot nearby your house, that's enough as a citizen to start thinking about it. So it's important to have good models, but to get this conversation going, sometimes just simple models can already support a lot.
Many thanks. Then there is, I mean, there's a question which is interesting because we say, what role can, I mean, the local high resolution monitoring play in targeting NbS, like, I mean, in buffer zones or in wetlands, I mean, in order to identify the most effective locations? Who can answer to this?
I can maybe just say that this is what we try to doing with Embracer, to have more monitoring, and also so we measure before implementation of the NbS and then afterwards, and they're still lacking a lot of this type of monitoring. um, just to give an example, I think it can play a crucial role with buffer strips. For example, we want to understand if it's also useful to implement it for phosphate in a certain area. And there we had local water quality measurements, and then we could really see, okay, in this location it would be more needed, or it's a priority, and these locations less. So I think it can optimize your design and give more clear priorities where to start.
Thank you. So it seems that we have, I mean, other questions, but I mean, time is really running, and I think that we are, I mean, close to the end of the webinar. Even though, I mean, I guess that also our speakers will be happy to receive the questions and maybe to reply, I mean, to whoever, I mean, participated and has an interest in what we discussed today, which is, I mean, really, it comes really, say, as I said before, a very timely manner and moment, because, I mean, we really need, I mean, to act in order to protect and manage more efficiently water through another-based solutions. And well, I mean, this is really what we got today from the speakers. And I guess that's, I mean, the expert group on gray green infrastructure and other based solution will also work, I mean, in the coming days in order to produce, I mean, papers and maybe organize other webinars, so interesting like the one of today. And well, I mean, once again, I mean, thank you so much for your contribution today. Thank you to the audience that participated, and we'll send you, I mean, the question that were not, I mean, mentioned during these last minutes of the webinar. I take the opportunity to remind that next week we are going to have Water Knowledge Europe Winter Edition 2025 in Brussels, which is the brokerage event to respond to the new calls for proposal of the last work program 2026-27 of Horizon Europe. It will be in Brussels from the 2nd to the 4th. All details are on the website of Water Europe, and I hope to see also you then in this important event that will also support another-based solutions advances, I mean, in research, development, and scaling up of solutions. So once again, many thanks to the speakers, many thanks to my colleagues over the Europe that supports, I mean, the implementation of this webinar, and many thanks to the audience. Thank you so much once again. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.